Hello and welcome to the second episode of Codewolf Presents Serious JavaScript. Now I know the first episode was a bit long because I had to explain a lot of things from scratch, but right now we have already known about what all we are going to learn and we are trying to find solution to a problem, that is how to remove duplicates in an array. So we already saw the method, which I consider for me it was a pretty fast approach wherein we could just solve this using a single line of code. Now there are other methods as well where we can use different functions present in ES6 JavaScript. Now the method that we are going to discuss is using the Array.filter method. There's a simple logic over here. What we are trying to essentially achieve is take the elements, the index, and the array parameters of the filter method. As you can see, the filter method will take just these three parameters, and using these we can definitely sort out what all is present inside an array and remove the duplicates using a simple return of the method filter. Now what happens is we know that the filter will return these values based upon a certain condition that is present in the array that we actually apply upon it. Here we only need to check that the element before that has come before uh, in the array will not be added into the new array. So what do I mean by this is simply that if, say, in the previous example we had a list of Ankush, uh, Codewolf, Ankush and Manu. So if Ankush has already been counted and it's already present in the new array, then we need not to count Ankush again. We need not to take its index and we can definitely ignore it. So using this method, we can remove the duplicates as well. I think it will be much more clear when we understand what happens while coding this as well. So again, I'll move back and use a normal fiddle to code whatever we have learned over here. So let's go back to the code. Okay, so we can begin coding this set of solution. Now what we want to do is we want to use a filtered method. Using this filter method, we want to attain the same result as before. So can we achieve that? Let us take another name variable over here. Let's create another variable and let us name it as unique filtered names. So now what we want to do is we want to start the filtration process, or we want to apply the filter method on our array, that is names itself. So first of all, we'll take the names array. We'll start by using the filter method, and as I explained earlier, we'll be passing three parameters into it. First will be an iterable item that we want. Now what happens is that names is an array that contains all these items within it. To access all these items within the filter method, we need something, some variable, some name to access these. So let us name that as item. Now the second parameter will be the index. As we can see, every item within this array consists of an index. For example, the first item called Ankush has an index of 0, and so on we move ahead to 1, 2, 3, etc. Now we can further go ahead and take another parameter called array. Now what happens is that we are using the ES6 concepts, and now we move on to use the arrow functions. what arrow functions are and how they can be used efficiently, what are the differences. I'll again be covering these in detail in a separate video. Right now, it's best to understand that arrow functions make our job a whole lot easier when using methods and functions such as filter. So now we can write our condition which needs to be satisfied when creating a new array called unique filtered names. So our condition would be array dot index of will pass in the item name, or simply what we have mentioned over here, item, and will equate it to index. Now let me again explain what's happening over here. So using this syntax, what we are doing essentially is we are returning a value based upon a condition. Let me try to explain this in a simple method how it would function. So let us try to understand this by writing it in a more traditional way so that we can see what all is happening inside this filter method. Okay, so here we can see that again we have created a variable called unique. We have again used the names array and applied the filter method over it. In this filter method, we have created a function which will return something that can be used to create a new array. Now what happens over here is that we have taken three parameters called item, index, and array, which are being used to satisfy a condition called array.index of item equal to index. To understand this a bit better, let us take this entire array and understand how the items are being iterated over and how a single item is being returned so that we are able to create a new array. For example, the first item called Ankush. Now when array.index of runs, it counts Ankush occurring at the index of 0. Our current index is also at 0. So this means that there is no problem. This can be returned. This satisfied our condition, which means that the current index is equal to the counted index of the array. Now, for a second item, that is code wolf, index that has been counted is 1. The current index is also 1. So that means this is also true and can be returned into the new array. For our third item, which is actually a duplicated item, now we see that index of will start counting it from the very beginning of the array. And before it can reach the third item, it will say, oh, I already have Ankush present at the very first position, that is index 0. So I need not to go ahead. What it means is that at the 0th index, we'll have Ankush, but the current index is 2, which means our condition won't be satisfied, and hence this will be skipped. Now for the final item called Manu, it will again move back and start counting from the very beginning, and it will find that Manu occurs at the third index. Now the current index of Manu, or the current index that we have and have been iterating over, is also 3. So this means that this item can be returned as well. Now you can see a different approach here as well. We could either use the ES6 approach and simply finish this in one line, or we could write a hefty function like this, use more space, make it a bit more difficult to read, and write a little bit of dirty code. It's your approach to take, but if considering that you want to write some serious JavaScript, some code that you can really be proud of, I do not recommend you writing this in any scenario. Always prefer to write it using a simple arrow function which we will cover later on in more videos. Okay, then, now let's test whether our unique filter names consist of all the items that we need. And sure enough, this is the same as what we had used previously. But now we can see clearly that complexity of writing this is rising. We have one more approach to go ahead, and with that approach, we'll see that how an untidy code can not only increase the complexity but also make it very difficult for us to comprehend the simplest of solutions in JavaScript. So, see you in the next video wherein we explore the last approach to this one problem before we begin with our basics and many more features that we need to cover.